Hey guys, welcome to my very first YouTube video. So I created this channel so I can talk about my passion because I am a complete and utter fragaholic. So I love using scents to elevate experiences and create memories. So yeah, brief background about myself. My name is Teresa and I am from the Philippines. I hope you do enjoy this kind of content that I will be bringing out here and in the future. So if you do enjoy it, please do like, subscribe, and share, and then turn on the notification button. So my very first review will be about Roja Parfum Sweetie Oud. And why choose Roja as my very first YouTube review? To me, Roja Parfum is synonymous to quality, and the reason why is because I just find the materials that he used, although composition wise it may not always be the most unique, it is just so extremely elegant and high quality. So to give you an analogy, I think that is easier to understand. Roja uses a lot of natural oils, and in fact I found out that 90% of the fragrance oils that is used in his perfumes is made out of naturally sourced ingredients as compared to maybe synthetic ingredients made in the lab. Again, back to my analogy, I would pretty much liken that to maybe something like coffee. You have your ground coffee, which is very natural, and if you have black coffee is in the strictest sense the most complete or best way to experience the flavors of a coffee bean. However, you do have something like instant coffee, which is pretty much similar to coffee. It is coffee, it just isn't exactly the same as a naturally produced or grown coffee, for the very reason that it is coffee in the sense that it retains the structure, it retains the flavor, and it retains the aroma and caffeine that is already present in a naturally grown coffee. However, in terms of actual performance, it isn't the same, and so it's pretty much similar in this regard. But even more so, there is something called something like Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee or civet coffee, and these particular ingredients are so refined and unique to a certain place because of conditions such as the flora, the fauna, the soil, the weather, that you cannot seem to replicate anywhere else. And these are the ingredients I find that are used in a lot of these Roja parfums. And another thing I really enjoy about Roja is that I found out that Mr. Roja Dove, or Roger Bird, such English humor, isn't it? He was trained for 20 years with in Guerlain, and the most amazing thing about it is in 20 years he managed to become professeur de parfumeur, I think, or something like that, which essentially means like master perfumer. And at that time of his creation of his niche house, he was pretty much the only non-Guerlain person to ever have that title. Obviously we have Thierry Vasseur nowadays, who's the head of Guerlain, but I mean that just speaks volumes to the kind of talent that he has for creating perfumes. So you also understand that because he had a lot of training under Guerlain, he has a tendency to create perfumes in the French style, meaning he uses a lot of synthetics to enhance the perfumes. But like I said, compared to just using synthetics like a mass-produced perfume would do, which would probably only have 10% at the most naturally derived ingredients, he just uses these synthetics to enhance the smell instead of recreate the smell in itself. So anyway, to Sweetie Oud. Okay. Before I tried Sweetie Oud and his other Oud lines, I absolutely hated Oud. Like, if I ever see Oud in the fragrance list or in a notes list, I would just axe it. I would never even bother trying a perfume, for the very simple reason that to me, Oud smells like poo. It smells like pee. So, I mean, like, if who wants to smell like poo or pee? No one really. And so I realized only over time when I tried his perfumes, I realized that it wasn't oud that I was averse to. It was just the type and quality of oud that I have not experienced back then that I was really looking for. And so now all of a sudden I'm like all into oud, and I'm really keen on trying his other oud fragrances. I have sampled maybe like 6 or 7 others from his fragrances, but I'm obviously keen to try more because he does have a very extensive oud line. And I think the reason why his oud is absolutely brilliant is because I found out that he lived in Dubai for 3 years, and you know, he was rubbing elbows with the best of the best, and he discovered the tradition of oud, and it being an oil from the attar. You just put it on, and it's so sensual. You know, you put on your tunic, and then your tunic is scented by the bakur. This kind of oud isn't supposed to smell like poo. It's supposed to enhance your body odor, bodily secretions, to just make you smell very sensual. And so to me, the oud that he normally has tends to smell a little bit velvety, more hay-like instead of poopy-like. So I think if you are averse to oud, definitely do try his oud line, because I think that's the star of the show. Another thing is, and I think this is why I absolutely love Sweetie Oud, is because the presence of oud with the style that he used for Sweetie Oud just makes it into this really beautiful fusion of cultures where East meets West. And so that's why I'm going to talk to you now about Sweetie Oud, because Sweetie Oud has so many notes in it, but essentially it only smells of 2 things. Number 1, it smells of a bakery or a patisserie, and number 2, it smells of oud. So let me just pull up the notes, and I'll explain to you why. Honestly, looking at the notes, it doesn't even matter, because you can never imagine what it smells like just looking at his notes list. So the top notes, you have bergamot and artemisia. For the heart notes, you have rose dumai and cistus. Base notes, you have cardamom, cumin, I don't know how to pronounce this, gurjum, cypriol, patchouli, cedarwood, kayak wood, juniper, ambergris, oud, patisserie accord, frankincense, and labdanum. So if you look at it, and if you look at all his other perfumes, it's exactly the same. It's just so complex. You will never, ever, ever guess what the perfume smells like. However, again, when he blends these notes so masterfully, it creates such a beautiful accord that you just cannot resist. And so for this particular perfume, Sweetie Oud, what I get from it is a beautiful experience that I never thought I could ever relive again. And this takes me back to the time when my husband and I went to Paris, and we stayed in a hotel that was literally a stone's throw away from the Eiffel Tower. And we found out that afternoon that the breakfast for the following morning was going to be continental breakfast. And you know, my husband being my husband, man being man, you know, he's like, oh, I want meat, I want an English breakfast, etc. But the following morning, when we went downstairs to the buffet area, we were greeted by this extremely beautiful whiff, super appetizing whiff of a bakery. And that was because they had so much French patisserie, French bread in it. They had croissants, they had, oh my god, I can't even describe it. It blows my mind every time I think of it. And because of that smell and the freshness of the ingredients, I honestly think that was the most delightful breakfast buffet we have ever had. Considering it was literally only cheese, cold cuts, and bread, it was just so amazing. And so to me, Sweetie Oud literally smells like Paris. It smells like the bakeries in France. But even more so, what's interesting about this is that even though it smells like food, it doesn't just make you smell like food, if you get what I mean. Like, you still smell like you're wearing perfume. And I have to give credit to the oud that has been used here. The way this perfume performs is that from the start, at maybe like the first few seconds, the first thing you will smell is this sharp note. And I guess you could say it is because of the artemisia, it is because of the bergamot. It just creates like this really sharp opening in the first maybe 5 seconds. And then all of a sudden it turns into bread. Like, you know, when you start baking bread and then it starts rising and then the dough just becomes pastry, it just becomes croissant. That's what you smell. And then as it progresses, maybe 20-30 minutes after, the pastry starts melting the butter. It starts making it a little bit more creamy, a little bit more milky. And so the butter just elevates and increases as the duration of the perfume goes. As the perfume moves on towards the dry down, the bread slowly dissipates. And what's amazing about this is the oud suddenly comes out. And I've had this for a while, okay, maybe 2-3 hours. The oud here isn't oudy in the sense that it's fecal, but it is very dark. It is very sensual. It's like if you've ever put bread in a box, a wooden box, for maybe 30 minutes, and then you just to prepare it and you put a cloth over it. You take out the cloth, you take out the bread, and all that you're left is a box with like bread oils in it, and you smell it. That's what you kind of get. And so I think it's absolutely brilliant because he's able to bring in the best of a very Western kind of experience with the nature of the elegance of Western Middle Eastern perfumery, which is oud. And so I think in terms of uniqueness, this is very, very unique. So Sweetie Oud to me is definitely a gourmand, but is not a gourmand in the typical sense where they rely on vanilla, on caramel, you know, on labdanum, tonka, chocolate to make it smell very yummy. Sweetie Oud is gourmand in its most literal sense. And if you look at the etymology of gourmand, it is actually a Middle French word which means glutton, or someone who loves eating food, who eats food a lot. And so it changes the way that we talk about gourmands, because gourmand here is literally a food. It is something that when you smell it, it is so appetizing. In terms of projection, because this is a parfum, it doesn't come out like an initial blast of like, oh my god, it's just perfume everywhere. And I think we have to attribute that to the fact that parfum or extrait de parfum concentrations generally only lose about 20% of the fragrance oils, or diffuse 20% of the fragrance oils in the first few minutes. So it is generally a journey when it comes to longevity. You cannot beat this. Honestly, sometimes I spray this at night, like at 12 midnight, and in the morning, by even at 10 a.m. I can still smell it on my skin, and it's just so nice, and it doesn't smell dirty at all. And the most amazing thing about this is the sillage, okay? This one is a pulsating kind of perfume. So if you spray it on your neck, on your wrists, this isn't the kind of perfume that just projects and it just like offends your nostrils for hours on end. It's not like that. It's more subtle, like you don't experience it until you kind of move. And then all of a sudden, all you get are whiffs. And I think that's the best way to experience a perfume, because if you've had an experience in your childhood where you remember like a bakery, or you remember, you know, your grandmother's closet, it's not like you're just sticking your head in the closet for God knows how long to remember it. It's because you're doing something, and then there's this incidental whiff of the scent that just reminds you, or that just sticks into your brain, so that when you smell it again, you're like, I've smelled this before. If we're talking about price point, it is very expensive. It is very expensive. My husband doesn't know. It is very expensive, and in fact, you can only get it in 2 places in London physically. One is in Harrods, and the other one is Burlington Arcade. And Burlington Arcade, my god, it looks like Diagon Alley. So I just, you know it already. It's in Mayfair, it's in Harrods. This is going to be expensive, but the price definitely demands the kind of quality that it offers. In fact, I would say, because perfumery is a very lucrative but mass appealing business, you know, sourcing all these oils can take a toll on the environment. And I suppose that is also why we do have a lot of synthetics, and that's why synthetics aren't necessarily evil or bad. But if you do want to get the best, if you do want to get something that is very raw and intriguing and has just the spirit of the place, you know, you definitely have to pay for it, because you are paying for the price that you are paying, that the environment is paying for as well. And so do not complain. They are very good perfumes, but this is definitely not beginner friendly. It is definitely not blind buy safe by any means, because 400, 500, 600 pounds is definitely a high price to ask for any beginner. But if you are a collector, definitely, if you want to build your perfume, do look into Roja Parfums. It just is brilliant. It's the best house so far for me when it comes to quality. So if you did enjoy my review of Sweetie Oud and the tidbits that I was able to share, please do, again, like, subscribe, and share this video. And do let me know what perfume for you was the most unique, or just gave you that like mind-blowing experience the first time you ever smelled this, or ever smelt it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.